Haribol, Kamala? Wag, my klank is af, ek moet net eers hier reg maak, hoor. Okay. Ag, kak man. Okay, can you hear me, Kamala?
Papa, ek kan pa hoor sit pa se klank af.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, you can hear us. Wonderful. I don't know how much you have missed from what I've just said, probably everything.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I didn't hear everything. It's
well,
okay.
Well,
yeah, Hare Krishna.
All over the world, I've just mentioned that today is the International Day of the Coconut. And you have certainly heard so many things about coconuts today and eaten coconuts, and you just...
I didn't actually know that.
You just want to get away from all the coconuts, so we will be hearing a Bhagavad Gita lecture from the 4th chapter, and we are very pleased to have Kamala-Sita Devi Dasi with us. She is sitting somewhere here in Germany, I believe, in her room, and
I'm sitting in Leipzig, just outside of Leipzig, actually.
Outside of Leipzig, is it not Ochelmitz? Is that right?
Yeah, Ochelmitz, yeah.
Wonderful metropolis of Ochelmitz. And we all
fantastic.
Go there, but I've not yet done the journey. I will be in Leipzig though on Saturday, and some of us, some of those people you can see behind me, will be coming.
Hare Krishna.
To Leipzig Ratha Yatra, but before we do that, we would like to hear from you about the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, thank you very much for asking me to do this lecture. It's always a great opportunity to find out what I know and what I don't know. And so like you said, we're going to read from the 4th chapter and the 5th verse today. And before we start, I'm just going to do the normal prayers, and then we can start proper. Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Garamayam Darati Swapadantikam Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Rara Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Tapta Kanchana Panchakopa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Wow, my eyes just started to burn. Sorry, I'm not crying, unfortunately. Okay, so today we can I share my screen, or do you have the verse up on the screen somewhere?
We don't have it. We can make you.
No. Yeah, I can.
If you want,
just make me a
I can make a co-host. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice.
Co-host.
Okay, great. Okay, so today we are reading Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 5. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Bahuni Me Vyatitani Janmani Tavas Charjuna Tanyaham Veda Sarvani Natvam Veda Parantapa. The personality of Godhead said, "Many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them. You cannot, O subduer of the enemy." So in this verse, we just to bring it into context again, it's in the middle of the war of Kurukshetra, battle of Kurukshetra, and Arjuna has had some existential crisis, and Krishna is kind of explaining to him what's what. And there are two terms that I want to focus on today. Krishna says in the first sentence, he says, "I have had many, many births, and you can't remember any of them, but I can." And he also calls Arjuna subduer of the enemy. So while we, the way I want to do it today is we're going to systematically read through the purport and see what it's all about. Okay, so the purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Ki Jai. In the Brahma Samhita, we have information of many, many incarnations of the Lord. It is stated there, "Oh, I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, Krishna, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning. Although expanded into unlimited forms, he is still the same original, the oldest, and the person always appearing as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually not understood by even the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees." So this verse is very interesting because it immediately situates Krishna in his constitutional position. He says that Krishna is the original person, he's absolute, he's infallible, and he's without beginning. So it mentions basically Krishna's Satchit Ananda form. And what's also interesting from this section of the purport, it says that the Lord cannot be understood even by the best Vedic scholars, but they can always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. So we immediately understand that it's like, I know for myself, it's like if I want to understand something, like any topic of knowledge, currently I'm like studying astrology, I can read a lot of things about astrology, about the nakshatras, about the Navamsa chart, about the Rashis and the whatever else. But I always, like, I can understand it, but if I really want to understand it and especially know how to apply it, then I have to ask my astrology teacher, and he usually gets messages from me on WhatsApp. So, and it's also like that. If you just think about normal science, all we can teach ourselves things. Like a lot of people. I just heard a conversation the other day from someone who taught himself basically how to code, program computers and things like that. But usually any kind of knowledge we have, any kind of knowledge we read on the internet, any kind of knowledge we have in courses that we download from the internet, there's always a person behind it that compiles that knowledge, that makes sure that we have the lessons that we have. So knowledge cannot be learned without a conversation between a teacher and a scholar. And basically that's what we learn from our spiritual masters as well, and from Prabhupada. Is basically the parampara system. Krishna teaches the Bhagavad Gita in this case, and he teaches it to Arjuna. Another thing is, what's interesting is that Krishna says he's without beginning. Prabhupada, there's a lecture Prabhupada gave on this verse, and he describes it. He uses the analogy of the sun. So you have the sun planet, and the sun is moving around the earth. And from our perspective, it looks like the sun is only visible for 24 hours of the day, and then it's night, and then it disappears. And for now, I mean, now we know that the sun doesn't actually disappear. The sun is always there. It's just the position of the earth and the sun that makes it look like it disappears. But from our perspective, it looks like we have day and night. The sun is there, and then the sun is not there. But from the perspective of the sun, if you think about it, the sun itself doesn't experience day or night. The sun is just there. It's just moving across the sky, and it's only from our limited perspective. You're in Berlin, I'm in Leipzig. My parents are in South Africa, my brother's in New York. All of us experience day and night according to our different perspectives and according to our view of the heavenly realm, or the heavens. So, and what Krishna also says further, it says here, the next part, it says, I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who is always situated in various incarnations, such as Rama, Nishinga, and many sub-incarnations as well. But who is the original personality of Godhead, known as Krishna, and who incarnates personally also. In the Vedas, also it is said that the Lord, although one without a second, manifests himself in innumerable forms. He is like the Vaidurya stone, which changes color, yet still remains one. All those multiforms are understood by the pure, unalloyed devotees, but not by the simple study of the Vedas. Devotees like Arjuna are constant companions of the Lord, and whenever the Lord incarnates, the associate devotees also incarnate in order to serve the Lord in different capacities. So, Krishna then explains that if I want you to visualize it for yourselves, we have the sun planet, and it's moving across the sky, and according to time, place, and circumstance, time, place, and the angle from which we see it, the sun looks different. It's the same sun planet, but early in the morning, just before sunrise, we can already see the light, and there's this beautiful blue light of dawn. The sun is already there, but the sun rays make it look different. And then 12 o'clock noon, it's directly above us, and I mean, from my perspective, the winter sun and the summer sun is also different. We experience, it's like, if we think about a week ago, I don't know what was the weather like in Berlin or in any other part of the country, in the world, but here in Leipzig, it was like an oven. For about a week, we had really like high 30 temperatures. And so that's kind of a different sun, that we experience the sun differently according to the time of day. And then if you think about just the other night, just yesterday, I sent my mother a picture of a beautiful blazing red sunset. So we can think of that in terms of, it's the same sun, but Krishna incarnates himself. If we think about the sun as Krishna incarnates himself according to time, place, and circumstance, according to what the devotees need at that particular time. And he looks different. He looks different in each incarnation, just like the sun, but it's still the same sun. So what we understand there is, and also we can understand it in terms of if you look at a crystal and you hold it against, Krishna explains here in the purport, Prabhupada explains here in the purport that Krishna is like the Vaidurya stone, and it changes color. And we can think, I mean, I don't know what a Vaidurya stone is, but I do know a crystal. So if you hold a crystal according to the light, sometimes it shines red, sometimes it shines blue, sometimes yellow, sometimes green, according to how you hold it. But it's still the same crystal. It just looks different according to how you look at it. So Krishna says then, I can remember all my births, because Krishna is transcendental and he is the supreme person, he's absolute, he's infallible. But then you have an interesting relationship with Arjuna. Arjuna himself, it's described here that Arjuna is the constant companion of the Lord. And whenever the Lord incarnates, the associate devotees also incarnate in order to serve the Lord in different capacities. Arjuna, I'm reading further, Arjuna is one of those devotees. And in this verse, it is understood that some millions of years ago, when Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god Vivasvan, Arjuna, in a different capacity, was also present. But the difference between the Lord and Arjuna is that the Lord remembered the incident, whereas Arjuna could not remember. That is the difference between the part and parcel living entity and the Supreme Lord. Although Arjuna is addressed herein as the mighty hero who could subdue the enemies, he is unable to recall what had happened in his various past births. Therefore, a living entity, however great he may be in the material estimation, can never equal the Supreme Lord. Anyone who is a constant companion of the Lord is certainly a liberated person, but he cannot be equal to the Lord. The Lord is described in the Brahma Samhita as infallible, achyuta, which means that he never forgets himself, even though he is in material contact. Therefore, the Lord and the living entity can never be equal in all respects, even if the living entity is as liberated as Arjuna. So, up until this point, we can understand that, I mean, I can't even sometimes remember where I put my glasses. So I can fully understand that I cannot even remember. A week ago, I can't even remember what I ate for breakfast. So, but Arjuna is sort of in a different category than us. He's eternally liberated. So he kind of comes with Krishna to take part in the pastimes. Krishna is inviting him to play with him. Like Krishna is saying, okay, I want to have my pastimes as Krishna on earth. You come as my best friend. So Arjuna does that. And again, in a lecture from Prabhupada, Prabhupada describes that he uses the analogy of Arjuna and Krishna are sitting on the same chariot in this very moment when Krishna speaks these words. In this very moment, Arjuna and Krishna are sitting on the same chariot, and Krishna is even from outside. It's looking like he has a oh man, I'm just thinking of the German word now. He has a subordinate position to Arjuna because he's the chariot driver. But Prabhupada says, we can understand, devotees can understand that Arjuna and Krishna are not on the same level, even if they are on the same chariot. And Prabhupada explains it like this. Say, for instance, you have a king that sits on a throne, or the president, or whatever. and some kind of bug comes, like a mosquito, bzzz, sits on the knee. The mosquito and the king are on the same throne, but we can understand that they do not have the same position, because the king's constitutional position is to rule, and the mosquito's constitutional position is to suck blood. That's what he does. And we can understand that even though they sit on the same throne, they do not have the same function and they do not have the same power. So it's the same with us. Krishna is supreme and we are subordinate. We are Krishna's servants. But what was interesting to me is that even though Arjuna is a liberated soul, and it's further described in this purport that Arjuna is addressed herein as the mighty hero who could subdue the enemies. He is unable to recall what had happened in his various births. So it's interesting because Arjuna, if you've read the Mahabharata, it's very clear that Arjuna is an extremely powerful warrior. We know that Arjuna is described as the best archer, and all through the Mahabharata you can see that, I mean, all the Pandavas and all the Kurus, they were exceptional warriors, that there's no question about this. But Arjuna was the best in all the categories. Like he was just superior to everyone. And he was so superior that he could go to the heavenly planets with, like, he didn't have to change his body. He could go to his father Indra and sit there and teach and learn from Indra all about the mystic weapons and everything. So Arjuna was really a powerful person, but still he can't remember his birth. So what chance is there for us? Now it may like, it's like a doom and gloom preaching, like, oh, what's the use? We can't remember anyway. But it kind of just, to me, it gives a lot of hope that I know I'm extremely small, so it kind of makes sense if you're humble enough that you cannot understand everything, and then it's okay, because Krishna is actually saying to us, even if you are very small, you're a limited being. We have the potential as devotees to understand Krishna by his mercy. Somewhere else in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that we have different ways of approaching him. I'm paraphrasing now. We have different ways of approaching him, and according to with how much devotion and how much endeavor we approach him, he reciprocates accordingly. So we as devotees have the potential to understand Krishna. But he says further in the purport that although Arjuna is a devotee of the Lord, he sometimes forgets the nature of the Lord. But by the divine grace of a devotee, a devotee can at once understand the infallible condition of the Lord, whereas a non-devotee or a demon cannot understand this transcendental nature. Consequently, these descriptions in the Gita cannot be understood by demonic brains. Krishna remembered acts which were performed by him millions of years before, but Arjuna could not, despite the fact that both Krishna and Arjuna are eternal in nature. We may also note herein that a living entity forgets everything due to his change of body, but the Lord remembers because he does not change his Satchit Ananda body. He is Advaita, which means there is no distinction between his body and himself. Everything in relation to him is spirit, whereas the conditioned soul is different from his material body. And because the Lord's body and self are identical, his position is always different from that of the ordinary living entity, even when he descends to the material platform. The demons cannot adjust themselves to this transcendental nature of the Lord, which the Lord himself explains in the following verse. So Krishna is basically saying that we can't remember him, but if he gives us the mercy, we can understand what he is. And I'm sure you've had the experience that sometimes we listen to lectures of Shrimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita or any kind of knowledge. If there, I don't know if there are any students studying something, we as limited beings, we sometimes have to hear something repeatedly before it sinks in. And so basically Krishna is coming again and again. He's Satchidananda, he's eternal, and he's coming in again and again and again, because Arjuna has already actually heard the Bhagavad Gita when the Lord spoke to Vivasvan, but he forgot it. So Krishna has to come again and again and again to explain something to us. And this whole thing, it's a bit much. Even sometimes I say to my husband, sometimes Krishna feels very far, like I can't reach him. He's really too far. He's too big for me. So I try to focus on Krishna's devotees, because sometimes they're just obviously because we're all here, and it's sometimes easier to focus on the devotees. And Krishna also says that someone who says he's my devotee is not my devotee, but someone who's the devotee of my devotees, he's my devotee. So Krishna is basically saying to us that no, he's not saying, but what I'm trying to explain is that even though we are limited beings, and even though Arjuna was the best friend of Krishna, he couldn't remember and we can't remember. But Krishna gives us that promise that if we serve him and if we cultivate a relationship with him, then then we can understand him. So the question that arose for me in this purport when I read it, it's like, okay, so we could ask ourselves, so why does Krishna keep us around? Like, why are we there? I mean, it looks like it's like such an unequal relationship. Krishna is the supreme person, and Arjuna is a liberated devotee, like a liberated soul. But what about us? We are not liberated. We're like stuck in Kali Yuga, which means that we've had innumerable lifetimes of making all sorts of nonsense, and we're stuck here now. We're in the last age. It's the age of hypocrisy and strife and fighting and whatever. So it doesn't seem like why would Krishna want us around? And the answer that came up is because of the relationship. Like can you imagine that Krishna, can you just imagine how important relationships are? If even the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is completely satisfied within himself, he has all the opulences. I mean, he's richer than the richest person on this planet. He's more beautiful than the most beautiful person on this planet. He's more renounced than even the most renounced monk on this planet. He's stronger than the strongest person. He has all the opulences to the absolute maximum, and still he chooses to have a relationship with his devotees, because that's what it is all about. Like, Krishna is never without his devotees. If you see, Krishna never incarnates alone. He doesn't come alone. He always has his entourage. He always has the people around him, his buddies. They are always together in different roles. And even Nrsingadev, you could say that Nrsingadev incarnated alone, but still it was to save his devotees. So it was due to the love that he felt for Prahlad Maharaj that he came and rescued him. So yeah, so and we can see that if I can just summarize it in another analogy, is that if you think of movie stars, like any kind of famous people, most of them are extremely beautiful, they are extremely rich, and a lot of them don't only know how to act, but they can sing. They are extremely talented in many different areas. And normal people like us, we can think about them and say, oh, they have everything, they should be extremely happy. But they are not actually, because I once heard an interview with the author of the Harry Potter books, J.K. Rowling, and she was explaining that, I mean, she's one of the richest authors in the world, and she gets a lot of begging letters, people writing her letters to beg for money. And it's kind of the same thing. We kind of do the same thing with Krishna. Like, Krishna is the source of everything. So we sometimes in our prayers, we kind of write Krishna begging letters. We want things from him. And he gives it to us because he loves us in some way or another. Sometimes he doesn't, but most of the time he does in some way or another. He provides for us. But if you think of the movie stars, people are so in awe of them that they treat them differently. But actually, they're just human beings. And Krishna is not a human being. He's the supreme person, but he's still a person, and he wants to have a relationship. He wants us as devotees to look behind the glitz and the glamour of the supreme personality, and he just wants a normal relationship. That's why Krishna makes his devotees sometimes forget, like the Vrindavan Leela. Due to Yoga Maya, the devotees forget that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Mother Yashoda never, ever, even when Krishna shows her the whole universe in his mouth, she still thinks, oh, my little boy, he's so special. Because, yeah, sometimes so what I wanted to say, just in the to summarize, is that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and he can remember everything, and we can't. But in actual fact, if you take the whole Bhagavad Gita as a summary, in the whole, Krishna is actually teaching us that even though we are limited, the most important thing that we have to focus on is the fact that we are in a relationship with Krishna, and that's the most important thing. And we could practice our relationship with Krishna by practicing how to have good relationships with the people around us, our parents, our friends, our husbands, our wives, our whatever relationship you're in. That's always a reflection of the relationship we have with Krishna. Someone once explained to me that if your relationships are not working this way on a horizontal level, you can be sure that it's not working vertically with Krishna. So whenever you have a problem in your relationships, you can understand that, okay, somewhere I have something wrong with my relationship with Krishna. And if you fix your relationship with Krishna by reading and chanting, and fixing your relationship with devotees and your friends and everyone around you, then it's a mutual process of just having a relationship with Krishna. Okay, so that's it. If there is anyone who has any comments, subtractions, additions, anything, you can ask now. Or I can just, if you don't have sound, you can also write your messages in the chat box.
Thank you very much, Kamala-Sita. You might have noticed in between there was something, or just some, like, I don't know, some minutes ago, something that appeared like a technical glitch. We saw that you stopped in between for some seconds. That was intentional because we could only see that your shared screen, and due to popular demand, we decided to make your face reappear on the screen because we just saw some letters on the screen and it was kind of impersonal. And since you talked about this supreme personality, we decided we want to see you as a person or perceive you as a person. So those of you who have questions can either submit them to the chat box, or they can also choose to unmute themselves by clicking on that small microphone button in the icon in the bottom left corner. So yeah, if any one of you have questions, you can ask them, and go ahead.
Hare Bol Mataji, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
It's Deeptanshu from Oslo. You talked about relationship with the Supreme and others. Can you elaborate a little bit more? Because it's, yes, I mean, how to practice on this relationship, how to like realize this relationship, Mataji.
Which relationship? Just in general relationships, how we can practice our relationships, or
with Krishna? With Krishna.
With Krishna, I mean, we practice our relationships with Krishna when we practice our relationships with devotees, with our immediate people around us. Because I mean, Krishna is the Supreme Personality, but if we think about Krishna still a person, he still wants relationships, and he just think about your relationships just think about it. Anyone, I example with my husband, there are certain things that I have to do to make this relationship work. Like I have to take care of him. I mean, if he's sick, I have to take care of him. I have to make sure that I speak to him in a way, because sometimes according to your psychophysical nature, you can there are certain ways in which you feel loved. Like there's an author, Gary Chapman. He wrote a book called the Five Love Languages, which basically means that all people are roughly categorized according to 5 typical ways in which they give love and experience love. So for instance, you get people who express love by giving gifts, and you get people who express love by receiving hugs or physical contact from people, or you get people who experience love by appreciation, like they want people to appreciate them, they want people to express their appreciation, or words of affirmation, like they want to hear when they've done something well. You can see that with children, like if you a while ago I was teaching my neighbor's daughter how to play the harmonium, and I mean, she's 3, her hands are only like this big and she can't reach all the keys, but whenever she did something well, I really praised her, and you could see it's just like the smile blossomed on her face, because she experienced that that kind of relationship. So and it's the same with Krishna. If we read Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam, Krishna makes it very clear how we can have a relationship with him. And it's on the same principle, we practice our relationship with Krishna by practicing our relationship with devotees. Because as I say, sometimes it's difficult because we, due to our nature of not understanding everything, our limited nature, we don't always understand that Krishna, like Krishna's big, he sometimes feels very far, and by practicing with his devotees, like, because if you can understand how to have good relationships with devotees, you will automatically understand the principles of having good relationships, and then you can apply them to having a good relationship with Krishna. It goes both ways. If you work on your spiritual relationship with Krishna, you will automatically have better relationships with devotees. And if you put effort into your relationships with anyone, not just devotees, then you will have good then you will have a good relationship with Krishna if you approach it in that way. So to elaborate is just to try and understand, okay, Krishna is a person, he's the supreme person, but in principle he's the same as everybody else in terms of he wants a relationship. So you understand your relationship with Krishna by understanding your relationship with devotees. And you have to think about the people in your life to understand what kind of relationships you have with them and what you can do to please them. And sometimes you can just ask also. It's sometimes as easy as that. Just ask people, ask Krishna, how can I please you? Is that okay?
Yes, Mataji, thank you so much.
Okay, good. Haribol.
Haribol, my Mataji, please accept my humble obeisance. Thank you so much for your words. What would you advise in relationships between a devotee like me and a non-devotee when the one partner wants to develop the relationship with Krishna and the other part wants to avoid it? Avoid it.
Yeah.
Avoid it.
Well, the thing is it's quite like on a material level, what I explained, it stays the same. You have to. I was once in Vrindavan, and like the last time I was in Vrindavan, thank goodness, just before lockdown, I was in a lecture with Adi Purusha Prabhu. And he explained that whenever you have difficulties with someone on some level, material level, they're irritating you, they're going against you, they're making your life difficult, whatever else, you have to remind yourself that Krishna is in that. You just tell yourself, Krishna is also in that person's heart. And what I explained to the other Prabhu, it stays the same. Whatever relationship, I don't know what specific relationship you're talking about, but whether we, because everybody is actually a devotee. It's just the degree to which we have remembered that we are servants of Krishna, and but our principal needs and desires are the same. All of us want to be happy. All of us want to be loved. All of us want to be respected, appreciated. All of us have talents that we want to live out, like we want to express ourselves. That stays the same. So as a devotee, you could see that as service to Krishna, to say that I want to have a good relationship with this person, and I'm trying my absolute best, and I'm doing it as a service to Krishna. And in terms of if they want to avoid Krishna, sometimes you just have to keep that sometimes if you just want, you have to keep that part kind of separate, not so much in their face, because I've had experiences with people that like I lost my best friend. Basically, we were friends for 10 years. Like we went through everything together, and I was even a bridesmaid at her wedding. And I mean, I got to know the devotees in between while we were still friends. And I spoke to her, but I spoke to her in terms of her Christian religion. But the moment I like told her like, oh, I found a spiritual master and I went to visit him, she just shut down, because it wasn't something that she could digest. And I immediately realized, oh yeah, okay, I've lost a relationship now, because I've made it too much for her. She couldn't digest it. So in terms of material relationships, it stays the same. But in terms of the spirituality, Krishna also doesn't really want us to rub Krishna consciousness in people's faces if they don't want it. So it's also not good if they want to avoid it. Then there's always prasadam. Everybody likes eating, and prasadam is very powerful. You can cook for them. You can pray for them. They don't have to know that you're praying for them. If there is anybody on this recording somewhere that wants to add something to what I've said now, you are welcome to do so. But in terms of what I've said, does that make sense to you, or do you still have a question?
Thank you very much. It's my life partner. We are 18 years together, and I'm 5 years in Krishna consciousness, and he is not a fan of eating. This is a little problem. I cannot supply him so good with prasadam like other Prabhupadas. Some Prabhupadas said sometimes, if they eat a lot, they will stay, and if they eat less, they will go. He saw it as a good sign when the people are ate much. Yeah, thank you very much.
But, okay, so now I have a better idea of what. So it's your life partner. I mean, is there anything that he likes to eat, or just in general he doesn't like to eat?
Cake, some cake or some sweets.
Yeah, you can make him something that he likes, and then you offer it to Krishna. That's
yes,
also.
I try. I do whatever is possible, apples or bananas or. But
you have to also remember that, I mean, it's like what I said. It's just because in the beginning, I'm not saying that you are, but I've made the mistake that in the beginning of my Krishna consciousness, I was really kind of fanatic about the things, that it has to be that way. And that kind of burns people out. It makes it difficult for them to accept, because people want to be accepted as they are. They don't want to feel like they have to change. So you just have to remember that it does take time. You've been in Krishna consciousness 5 years. It's okay. It does take time, and if you keep on treating your partner with respect and just make your relationship as normal as possible, where you give him place to be himself, then he will come around. I think it takes, for some people, it takes a while to just get used to everything, but yeah. I mean, I could tell you from personal experience a lot, but yeah, maybe there's someone else that wants to add to this, or is that okay?
Thank you very much. It's totally okay. Thank you very much for sharing.
Okay. Okay, is there any other questions? Are there any other questions?
It appears there are no other questions.
Yep.
And there is nothing in the chat box, and there has been no reaction so far from anyone else, if I see correctly. So with that, we will conclude this evening. We thank you very much for giving this lecture. It was very insightful. And I think people liked it. They liked it. And we hope to see you and hear from you again sometime in the near future. I mean, we will see each other on Saturday anyway, but
yeah,
we hope to hear from you about the Bhagavad Gita. And to conclude, we would like to share again the darshan of the deity.
Oh yeah, Haribol. They're beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. It was such a pleasure, and it's always extremely nice to have the opportunity to, because it's not only, it's very good for my spiritual life also to just have an opportunity to go into depth and everything. So yes, thank you very much.
We thank you very much, and thanks to all the other devotees who were on this call and all the people who were with us in the temple room, and also the devotees in Oslo. Tusen tak to you, and hope to see you soon. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
You want to have darshan of ISKCON Oslo as well? Haribol.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, Haribol, Jagannatha. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Jai.
Haribol.
Shrimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Thank you, sir.
Haribol.
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 Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.